And the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. God has this amazing ministry that he uses fallen man to preach the word. Wow. He could have done it himself. He could have thundered it from heaven. He could have used angels, but he uses us. That's incredible. So the ministry of Christ in the heavenly sanctuary, if you look at the great story of how it all happened, when Christ rose from the dead, where did he go when he rose from the dead? He went up into heaven to serve in a sanctuary, says the book of Hebrews, in a heavenly sanctuary. So we have a heavenly ministry. We won't be dealing with the details in this particular lecture. And it stretches from then to the end of time. And it's divided up in the sanctuary language, where you have all the symbols, like the candlesticks and the bread and the altar of incense in the first chamber and the second chamber. And then we know where we are in the stream of time, so that we don't get lost in the book of Revelation. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Daniel 8, verse 14. So it goes right up to a particular time in history. We're not dealing with this prophecy either. There's a whole lecture on it, and you can find it in one of the tapes. But just a little bit of background. In Daniel 8, we have this story of an unfolding of an amazing prophecy. So he came near where I stood, this angel, and when he came I was afraid and fell on my face, but he said unto me, understand, O Son of Man, for that at the time of the end shall be the vision. Not the end of time, the time of the end. And while I was speaking in prayer, the man, Gabriel, the angel, came to me in swift flight, and he said to me, O Daniel, I have now come out to give you wisdom and understanding. And then he proceeds to give a most amazing prophecy, which is a messianic prophecy. The most perfect prophecy that you can possibly imagine. It gives the time when the Messiah should come. So accurately that in the Talmud you read, may the bones of the hands and the bones of the fingers decay and decompose of him who turns the pages of the book of Daniel. To find out the time of Daniel 9, 24 to 27. This is written in the Talmud. And may his memory rot from off the face of the earth forever. Talmudic Law, page 978, section 2. Why would the Jewish Talmud contain such a curse for someone who tries to number the time of Daniel 9, 24 to 27? I'll tell you why. Because it tells you exactly when the Messiah will come. It tells you exactly what the Messiah will do. We're not dealing with this prophecy in detail. As I said, there is a whole video on it. You can get it if you want to. There's also a book written on it. So the fact of the matter is that only one Messiah in the history of mankind applies, and that's Jesus Christ. No one else. And if they were to accept Daniel 9, 24 to 27, what would have to happen with the Jewish religion? It would have to become the Christian religion. And it would disappear off the face of the earth. Something that they do not want. And so, rather curse the one who uses it. It tells us when a decree would go forth. It tells us when the Messiah would start his ministry. It tells us when the Messiah would die, 31 AD. And it tells us when the gospel would go to the Gentiles. Amazing prophecy. It's a 2,300-year prophecy dealing with this tremendous time period from the issuing of the decree to restore Jerusalem all the way until the time of judgment. And there's a date there, 1844, because the 2,300-day prophecy, if you add it all together, 2,300 years from there, in the Bible, it tells us in the book of Numbers that, and in the book of Ezekiel, that you can take a day for a prophetic year. Then you get to an interesting date, which we will deal with in another lecture. Far too complicated to deal with it now. And then there is a time which the Bible calls the time of the end. And we're living in that time right now. And then one time we will come to the point of eternity. And the Bible teaches that Jesus is following the same ministry that was typified in that sanctuary service on earth. Hebrews 9:11, but Christ being come a high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, not an earthly one, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, Hagion, having obtained eternal redemption for us. Very important point. That's what the King James says. Some modern translations don't like this, so they've changed this to most holy place. Big problem. Because now the whole ministry of Christ shifts. But that's a complicated story. We'll deal with it. It can't be holy place. It can't be most holy place. Must be holy place. Because if it were most holy, it wouldn't say Hagion. It would say Hagia Hagion, which it doesn't say. It says that, which actually means sanctuary. Hebrews 9 verse 12, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood. So this ministry could only start once Jesus had died. So Jesus must have entered the sanctuary to start his ministry only after his death, which means he entered into the first chamber and not into the second chamber, because the high priest only entered that once a year. And in the book of Revelation, where do we see Jesus serving in chapter 1? Where the candlesticks are. So why are they trying to twist the Bible here and there? Complicated thoughts. Just put them in the back of your mind. Don't worry about them. We don't have to understand everything first shot. We'll get to that later. It'll get clearer. Hebrews 9, verse 3, and after the second veil, the tabernacle which is called the holiest of all, Hagia Hagion, the high priest went once a year. That was a different story. And when did Jesus do that? Obviously sometime after his resurrection. So the question I have to you tonight is, if we have a high priest, and if that high priest is God, and if that high priest is the only one who through his blood can save you, then we have to choose him over all others. If there is no other name under heaven and earth whereby you may be saved, then we have to choose him over all others. But I have news for you. If you do, you will get into trouble sooner or later, either in the immediate circle or in the greater circle. But as for me and my house, I have decided to serve the Lord, and I would like to invite you to do the same. Thank you.